How you guys doing tonight? Good? So glad to be here. I'm here a lot. I'm in Harlem a lot. A lot. All the time, actually, because we all live here. Everyone who I went to school with. Actually, I gotta tell you, I'm here for one reason. I have like an ulterior motive. So I'm just gonna come out with it now. I really, really, really want to open, actually I want to move my company here, and I really want to open a tech lab here. So I'm just leading with that. I'm leading with the fact that everything you see today, I want to bring that and more to Harlem as soon as possible. Get ready for a loud. This is, I should let you guys know, disruption is never quiet. Disruption is never calm. Disruption is never polite. So you're not going to get any of those things from me either. So just be prepared for that. To get started, I want to just first say thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate being reached out to and being able to engage with my community and a community that I really care about. I hope that you guys have a great time, and if you have any questions, I'm available to answer them after. So to get started, what I'm going to be talking about today is my company, Uncharted Play, the story in terms of how the company was founded and how our first flagship product, the socket, went out, was invented, and was actually distributed. And ultimately how, in my opinion, how it's actually, in the opinion of a few other fancy people at Mashable and Fortune and whatnot, how it's actually democratizing energy access for the world. And I believe will be the future of energy access in terms of what it represents. So to start, I'm just going to show a quick video that gives you kind of an intro to the invention story and some of the work that we do overseas. Or click on this.
Community Academy. We are in a remote area, infrastructures like roads were not constructed. We find it difficult to have access to education. I decided to put my interests, my resources, my wisdom to educate the masses. Without education, we are nothing. The most striking thing that we need in this environment is light. When there is no light, how do we read? We have no option than to use generators. The end product of generator is carbon, and its fuel in nature is dangerous. Light is life. When there is no light, no life. Football has been a phenomenon. Somebody has devised a means of using football to produce electricity. The process is this. Take football into the field, kick it, play with it. It has made a movement here and there. and this is kinetic energy. This is the most modern type of production of electricity. It is not dangerous. It is portable. It is not dirty. As you come and plug your light to heat, plug your phone to heat, plug any even heater to heat, it will light.
It's meant to be the spark. It's meant to be that thing that jolted people into realizing what was possible. The most interesting ideas that are going to come from the places that people would never expect. Just a little bit of power can make such a huge difference.
Well, the whole, every child in this place have these materials. You only come, kick the ball, charge your material, go and read. Go and use it for anything that you want to use for. Light is life.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. So what's represented in that video is our mission, which is pretty simple. To power a world in motion with motion. Now, the thing is why I think this is so important and where this comes from. If we're talking about disruption, one of the core things in my mind that really affect the way people live their lives is energy access. We're constantly on the move, we're constantly on the go, we're constantly hungry for power, but not as many people as you think are actively thinking about how we sustainably get that power and use that power. And the reason why, again, it's so important for me to be here today, speaking to all of you, thinking about how we can build things together, is that the people who are needing this power more and more around the world look just like us. We are designing products and systems for our global community. And we need to start seeing our power as a global community, in my personal opinion. And what's exciting here, I think, is that this is a problem that our unique perspective on the world and really being willing and excited to look at our backgrounds as a competitive edge can help us address. Critically right now, the simple issue we have with the energy crisis is that the grid cannot sustainably scale. So right now we are in this wonderful room with all of these lights and everything's plugged in and it all works. But the reality of the situation is that that's not the way things work all around the world. And even here in the United States, as we continue to need more battery power for our smartphones, or as the Internet of Things expands and you need power for your Jawbone or your Fitbit or your smart this or your smart that, it still actually doesn't really fit with where we're going. Even when you think about renewable energy, we have a problem because it still utilizes the grid, it still has huge upfront costs, it still requires ecological displacement, whether it's a nuclear power plant or a solar farm or a wind farm. You have to move a lot of things to put that there. And coming from my background as a psychologist, I'm actually a social scientist. I actually studied psychology and economics, not mechanical engineering, which I'll explain more later. It's also a passive experience, which is a key problem. Because when you're thinking about sustainability, you have to be wary of the tragedy of the commons. And the problem, of course, with the way we get all of our energy is that we have nothing to do with it. We just flick a switch. We just let the wind blow. We just let the sun shine. And so how could we possibly be thinking about how to consume this power sustainably if we can just get it without having to do anything? Around the world, this problem can be a little bit more dire, in particular in the global south, which is where we've really started doing a lot of our work. So you can see here on the continents of Africa and Latin America, Southern America, just what's going on in terms of access to electricity. In fact, nearly 2 billion people around the world lack reliable access to electricity. In these communities, what they end up using are things like kerosene lamps or diesel generators, which are horrible for the environment and horrible for the individual. In fact, living with a kerosene lamp is like essentially smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, which for a 4-year-old child is not necessarily the ideal way that you want to grow up. So ultimately, for me, and I think for the whole world who's really understanding this issue, anyone who's willing to understand the energy issue, the question becomes, what does it take to really disrupt the way we consume energy forever? And I think this is an exciting question, not just because of the stakes that I've laid down regarding energy, but because for this summit and this conference, and with the entrepreneurs and burgeoning innovators that you're going to be showcasing later, ultimately you're going to be asking yourself, what does it take for you to disrupt X? What does it really mean to disrupt something? Not just think about something, not just have a cute idea about something, not just, I don't know, sketch something out, but actually change entirely the way people think about this thing. Entirely the way people think something should be. To the extent that people will think you're wrong at first, which is the best sign. And so what I want to go through right now is kind of show you my process of how I did that. How from the age of 19 to the age of 27, which I am now, I've been on this path of disruption. So I was born in Poughkeepsie, New York, best known for Snooki from the Jersey Shore. It is what it is. You know, she's a fine girl, I guess. My parents were born in Nigeria. They're actually both from the same tribe. It's the Ishan tribe from Edo State. But funny enough, they met in Brooklyn because that's just what makes New York amazing. They didn't meet in Nigeria at all. They met in Brooklyn. Settled in Poughkeepsie, worked for IBM. And essentially, I think for me, gave me a really exciting opportunity to grow up not only with access to the global ills of the world, you know, going to Nigeria frequently, seeing my family, seeing my cousins, understanding the dire issues related to energy access, but also growing up 100% American, growing up believing and thinking that I can have the American dream, which isn't necessarily the same for everyone, as I think we all know. But I think in particular really having access to a great science and STEM education, which makes me very excited about some of the things that HBA is doing actually. Really thinking about science as a tool to build the world that has yet to exist. And so the combination of those two things and having these interests and seeing the world as a place that there's still a lot of opportunity and things to build eventually led me to Harvard undergrad, where actually, as a side note, does anyone in here step, or have you ever stepped before? How I got into Harvard, just so y'all know what to tell your kids to do, is that I did my interview, I did everything, I mean obviously do well in school, do clubs, blah, 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 duh. But I remember, the one thing that was different about me is that I was the captain of my step team. And she asked me to step, this like old lady asked me to step, because she's like, because I was like, oh, if you don't know what it is, I'll do it for you. And she's like, yeah, I don't know what stepping is, do it. And so in my business suit, like I broke it down, like the best speed step of my life that I can still do to this day, if you don't believe me, and I got it. So, just letting you know. Just letting you know. And since then, I've been the captain of my step team, even in business school. It's like, I've done it, anyway, I believe in stepping, and I just thought it would be fun. But so I'm here, and I have this exciting opportunity to take a course called Idea Translation, Affecting Change Through Art and Science. And in this course, they ask us to combine art and science to try to build something or create something. So there is something to be said about innovation that can come from just being in an education setting and being allowed to think and dream. So for me, what I thought back to were my experiences visiting my family and friends in Nigeria, particularly going to my aunt's wedding when I was 17 years old, where, as you might expect, we lost power. In the developing world, particularly the global south, you lose power several times a day. And then you bring in your diesel generator, your kerosene lamp. But in this particular situation, we brought out the diesel generator, and for some odd reason, the fumes were bothering me more than they normally used to. What I do when something bothers me is complain. Complain, complain, complain. It's part of my innovation process. And my older cousins, they were in their 20s. I remember them specifically saying, don't worry, you'll get used to it. And so this really bothered me, one, because they were essentially telling me to get used to dying, which is, to say the least, quite rude, and just not something I was willing to do. But I think what saddened me even more was that it was very clear that they had gotten used to dying. You know, it was very clear that They didn't think that there was any public opportunity to fix this solution, any private innovation that could ever come, that the status quo could ever change, that the way to fix this problem was just to get used to it. And I realized that this is something that I actually saw throughout a lot of areas of their life, kind of just taking things as they were. Very smart people, very capable people, so beaten down by the situation. This probably sounds like a very familiar trope around the world. So beaten down by the situation that they're like, what's the point of fighting? But the only time I actually saw them shake those ideas, the only time I actually saw them really show all of their passion and creative confidence and excitement for what's possible, for attempting the impossible, was when they were playing soccer. Oftentimes they didn't even have a real soccer ball. They weren't often wearing shoes. But you couldn't tell my cousin that he wouldn't be the next Ronaldo, or the next Messi, or the next David Villa. You couldn't tell him that it was impossible to hit the goal from 70 feet away, like, you know, standing on his head. You couldn't tell him. You couldn't tell him that. In his mind, anything was possible when he was playing. And so when you fast forward now to when I'm 19, 20 years old, taking this course, and I'm thinking about what to combine in terms of art and science, how to look at the world from both a methodical and an emotional perspective to create something meaningful and new. The idea almost was obvious. To me, the science was this utter and honest need for energy, and the fact that motion, kinetic energy, is all around us. Kinetic energy being the energy of motion. Literally, every single time you move, there's energy there. And then the art of play. The art of humanity, of being happy and joyful, literally bridging the gap between what's working for these people, for these communities, and what's not working, to create something that was almost like a psychological invention. Something that would not only address the short-term issue of needing renewable, clean energy for light and power, but something that would actually inspire people to actually be part of the solution, to actually start to think about what they could do to create more innovations, to think about this problem in an entirely new way. And so this is essentially what we built the company on. This idea, for me, again, at school, I chose to study psychology and economics because while I love to tinker, I have an equal love for Bill Nye the Science Guy and Beyonce, equal. I did all the science fairs and really loved to build in grade school and high school. It became very clear to me that no one person or organization or company can solve the world's problems. It's going to be rather a situation where we have to think about how we can get as many people as possible engaged in solving these problems. And that's all a mental game. That to me is all about how you think about the problem, how you think about the journey to the solution, and ideally how happy and fun that journey can be. And so to me, starting with something like play, the first thing that human beings did just for the sake of doing it, and providing a win-win to really create a product that wasn't just functional, but was really a domino innovation, really an emotional piece of technology. That was the key to creating something that would be at least the spark to a sustainable innovation. And so, right up here, this is what led to the socket. The socket is a soccer ball that actually harnesses the kinetic energy that's generated during play, stores that power inside of the ball, and then you can use the ball, one second, as an off-grid power source for light and other small appliances. So this is just images from us distributing around the world. This is in Brazil. This is in Tanzania. This is in Nigeria. We've actually also done several programs here in the United States as part of our STEM curriculum, Think Out of Bounds. And it's really exciting because for us, again, we're just amplifying existing behavior. People are going to play. no matter what. In fact, to skip ahead to something, people are going to play, no matter what. Even presidents play. A funny story related to this, when we were invited, you know, they had to give us our briefing, and they're like, okay, don't look at the president, don't touch him, you know, just don't even hand him the ball, like, you should be happy if he even knows you're breathing, like, all these things. And I was like, okay, all right, I mean, like, all right, like, still a human being, right? But they're like, you know, he's not even gonna wanna touch it, he's a busy man. Little did they know, or obviously they forgot that he's still a man. So, you know, I started to hear when that the president is practicing his soccer skills on Air Force One. I was like, oh, you know, why? We get there, we're at this power plant, and he decides to engage the president of Tanzania, the CEO of GE, in like a full-on match. And he's just like, oh yeah, you know, I played in the Philippines, so, you know, and just start doing his little thing. And I'm like, well, there you go. That is the proof of play. You know, even the president is gonna pull back and say, let me show you what I got. Let me show you how I can dream. So I want to just jump into that. But so it's exciting. We've gone all around the world, but again, still looking at the different things the different stimuli rather in the environment, looking at how we can move forward. We then actually went ahead and created something called the Pulse, which is an energy generating jump rope. This invention came specifically because while soccer is the most popular sport in the world, we knew that we needed something that again, was the probably most popular way to play or be fit around the world, but would also give young girls who, in some communities, like in some refugee camps, for example, once girls hit the age of 12, they're no longer allowed to play outside because they're too distracting to the boys. Why they don't just keep the boys inside is beyond me, but it is what it is. Or in just other situations where no matter how much the girl loves to play, she can't keep up with the boys. So she doesn't get light, so she doesn't get to play, so she doesn't get to dream. Unless it's double dutch, which is why we came up with the jump rope. This is super fun because it was something that, again, really came out of observing from the environment, which is another tip that I really want to share with the fellow innovators, to really constantly look at the environment for stimuli and opportunities to invent. And so this works in a similar way to any jump rope. Jump rope, get light. And so as I mentioned earlier, with these products, again, consistently looking at how we can continue to push forward the sustainability, continue to think about how we make these products have even more impact and have even more scale. And really think about, again, disrupting the way people think about how they consume power. If these play products were first, let's say, the Trojan horse, the tool to get people to start to understand kinetic energy in a way that's palatable and tangible and fun and exciting. Our curriculum, Think Out of Bounds, which we've done on 5 continents, including here in New York City, actually, in quite a few schools. If any of you have any after-school programs or schools that you think would be interested in this, please reach out, because we do them everywhere. This is a curriculum that we actually instituted that teaches kids how to invent with limited resources. Using these products and using examples of social innovators all around the world, we go through what it takes to prototype. We go through what it takes to make and break and consistently fail on your process and on your path to creating. Again, really thinking about how do we start to train this army of disruptors and people who are engaged in energy in a way that allows us to entirely change it in terms of how the world sees it today. So we've been relatively successful thus far in doing this. We've had quite a crazy ride. The company was officially founded in 2011. It's currently 2015. I would say the last year to year and a half is when we really started to take off. And I believe we've hit over 250,000 people with our products and our curriculum. So it's exciting with what we've done, but all I can say is that to all you innovators out there and builders, supply chain's a bitch. It's not sexy and it's real. Like, it's real. And that is a separate conversation that makes it very hard for anyone to build something, but especially people like us, because people don't tell us those things. They don't tell us about what it takes to go to Shenzhen in China and sit there and be called Serena Williams, even though you're not Serena Williams, and ask them to make your stuff. Well, it's hard. I still have feelings about it. You can see, like I still feel something about it. It's an ongoing pursuit. So there's a lot to it, you know. I think the 5 years that we've spent, ups and downs, we went through 7 iterations of the socket, so many different funding models, so many different ways that really, it's all about the hustler mentality and keep continuously pushing. And honestly, understanding what it means to make something in this global economy. Those are some of the things that went into us getting to this point, and I could not be more grateful for how far we've come, and really even more excited to start to share this information with those who are on this path as well. So a few things though that we learned on this path. Again, talking about, going back to that initial question, what does it take to disrupt the way we consume energy forever? On this process, I learned a lot about what it means to build a business, what it means to make something, what it means to get people excited about something as boring as kinetic energy. But during the same time, we were also building a lot of technology. We have 7 patents and patents pending covering hundreds of different products. And funny enough, I think the most exciting thing is that we've seen over an 18,000% decrease in the size of our technology. This is just one version of the technology that's actually inside the socket ball, which at first started as the size of that clear plastic you see, and is now the size of what you see here. I know it doesn't look like much, but I swear to God, it was everything. So the shrinking game, which is actually the key to disruption in technology, making things small enough so that they'll put it anywhere, like Intel and its chips, like Apple and its cell phones. Getting small is actually the step towards getting big. And that's actually where we are now. So what we ended up doing is continuing on this path now of disruption, and what we're actually currently in the process of doing, we'll be announcing, I believe in the next 6 to 9 months, is the name of our proprietary technology called MORE, Motion-Based Off-Grid Renewable Energy. And the idea of saying, okay, let's go beyond play and think about how we can supplement all of this power we have here. Supplement wind, solar, hydro with motion-based power. But be the people who actually own this technology. We've trademarked this name, MORE. So when you see MORE inside, you know it's me. That's what you're gonna see. Over the next 2 years, we're gonna be launching 3 products. One is the wheel. It's a modular piece that can be integrated into the supply chain of any product, and whether it's a stroller, you know, or a shopping cart. You ever wish that with your shopping cart you could just put something inside the cart and it just scans automatically? We're gonna power that. Yeah, that's us right there. That's what we're doing. That's what my mom was just so happy about that. She decided that that's when I made it. Everything else before didn't matter. You know, whether it's wheels for longboards or for your chair, we're literally looking at how all of this power can be harnessed from all of these micro movements to power meaningful things. Next, we'll be looking at cushions. You know, the idea is really the building blocks of life. So if something doesn't have a wheel on it, it probably has foam or a cushion in it. And so we're actually developing overmolded foam that can go into any type of piece of furniture. So whenever you sit up and down, you generate power. Whether it's these chairs you're sitting on here, or benches, or your bed, whatever you're doing, generating power. But the last one is my favorite one. Textiles. Bear with me here, I'm gonna get a little techie. But we are actually taking, if you know like shake to charge flashlights, so when you shake them, you get a charge. So the way those work is that you have a conductive coil surrounding a magnet. The magnet goes through it, it generates an electric charge, and you get power. We're taking that same concept and deconstructing it, literally disrupting it. And we're taking conductive fibers, which we're actually currently making, and we're interlacing them with magnetic fibers that make real clothing. And what we'll do there is we'll sell them to clothing manufacturers, and you put them in places that touch, like between under your arms, or in my personal experience, between my legs here. For those of us thick-thighed girls, this is for you. You're gonna be the happiest, most power-hungry person in the world. And what we're doing is making it so that you can actually get that power and store it in your pocket so you can inductively charge your cell phone. Put your cell phone in your pocket, and as you're walking, you're charging your phone. What are we talking about? Anyone who has power is like, well, maybe you should eat more. I got all the power. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what your problem is. That's so sad, isn't it? So, ultimately, all of this is working towards a vision that is 5 to 10 years out. But it became clear over the last 5 years that we need to start to think that way. Because real innovation does not happen overnight. It takes time, it takes grinding, it takes step by step. I envision a world where instead of having this macro power situation where you have those farms and things that I was talking about before that go through the grid, that we actually have a decentralized system where everything around us generates power, and we can aggregate that power and actually wirelessly charge everything instantaneously. If you come to our lab, you'll actually see us beaming power already. This is not that far in the future. But what's exciting, of course, is that my company is the one that already filed the patent on this, even though we haven't announced it, because we know it's coming. We know it's coming. So all I can really say is I hope I've given you some information about energy, some information about entrepreneurship, innovation, and disruption isn't easy. We need your support. We're really excited about engaging more and more with this community and actually being part of this community, bringing our curriculum more into this community, hiring out of this community, building in this community. So you can find us, you go to u-play.co. u-play.co. See what we're doing. Contact us for any reason. Well, not any reason, because some things I don't want to know. But, contact us for any reason related to working with us, helping us come to this community, partnering with us, innovating with us. I didn't have a background in science and technology. But the thing is, science actually is defined as the study of life. So if you're living, you're already more of a scientist than you think you are. We're ready to engage in many ways, and we could not be more excited to be building a home here in Harlem. Thank you.